Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this. It is currently 12:08 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, November 4th. My name is Phil Trem. I'm the president of MarshBerry's Financial Advisory Division, and I'm pleased to be here today with Joel Wood, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the Council of Insurance Agents and Brokers. It is the day after the election, and depending on when you view this, results may be different than or more complete than what we know as of currently. As of right now, we do not know who our next president will be. But what is interesting is we've learned quite a bit. So we've asked Joel to give us hopefully about 5 minutes of his time to give us a quick update on what we've learned based on yesterday's election and the impact it can have on the insurance brokerage industry and insurance agents and brokers throughout the country. So Joel, I know you're very busy. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to, instead of asking questions, turn it over to you. What have we learned?
Thanks, Phil. As always, so value this partnership and welcome any opportunity. Yep, you're right. At this moment, we don't know who the president is going to be. And we don't know with certainty who the Senate Majority Leader is going to be. But we do know a lot today that we would have been trying to wrap our arms around theoretically a couple of days ago. There was no blue wave. There was no red mirage in what was, the largest turnout election in my lifetime. The American public has produced a split opinion. So, anybody can tune into CNN or Fox or hear the pundits and all of that, though I think a lot of pollsters and pundits need to be looking for new jobs right now, some sort of a new line of work. But there are things that we know that I think are very relevant to commercial insurance brokerage. First of all, having not had a blue wave, we were all trying to wrap our heads around the prospects for the nuclear option, the legislative filibuster, a 52, 53, 54, maybe even greater Senate majority and sweep for Democrats with Chuck Schumer in charge. Getting rid of the legislative filibuster, what could that mean to the future of employer-sponsored insurance through a vibrant public option that is hinged on Medicare and other things that could diminish the role of the brokers? I think the prospects of that are now off the table in terms of the legislative filibuster. Doesn't mean that we're not going to face a lot of challenges, particularly on ESI. Likewise, packing the Supreme Court, statehood for Puerto Rico and DC, the Green New Deal, a big climate package. Those are all highly unlikely. There's going to be a great reckoning within the Democratic Party. Again, irrespective of how these last couple of Senate races wind up. And I'm, speaking as a Republican myself, we're a bipartisan organization. I'm very hopeful that Republicans will know today, Wednesday, that they will remain in charge, that Mitch McConnell will remain in charge. But this has implications on the tax front as well. As you know, Biden proposed increasing the corporate rate to 27, 28. And most importantly for your space, obviously, which we watch extremely carefully, is on long-term capital gains and qualified dividends, moving that up to 38.6%. Or is it 39.6?
39.6, yep.
So I do not see that in the offing and mixed government. I think the reassuring thing for commercial insurance brokerage executives right now is that we tend to do better when there's moderation, when control of the houses of Congress are, it's difficult to steamroller things. Now, in some ways, we would wish for different outcomes. I could give you a lot of things on the Democratic agenda or on the Trump agenda that we would love to see ran through. But as a general matter, I think what we've seen is a split election. Some moderation is going to have impact on the tax front, impact on the ESI front, and a whole host of issues that impact commercial brokerage.
And it's interesting, Joel. I guess a question. What I saw was, while the Democrats control the House still, Republicans gained a number of seats. It looks like we'll see what happens with the Senate, and it's going to be a little bit of a closer to almost split House, which, regardless of who wins president, it's going to make midterms in 2 years even that much more interesting. because it appears there's going to be no, as you had said, dominant control in any of the collective houses or the White House, but it's going to create quite a fight and probably even more political ads than we've seen in our lifetime between now and 24 months from now when we have another election.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's the audit on where the Democrats spent their money, because they spent so much more money than Republicans. I mean, spending a couple of $100 million against Lindsey Graham, spending $120 million against Mitch McConnell. They're going to have to look back and see, were those dollars well spent? I'm a victim of being an inside the Beltway conventional wisdom lobbyist guy. And so I sort of bought into the notion that the pollsters had corrected themselves from the mistakes of 2016. But the House numbers are really surprising to those of us inside the Beltway, and that almost every one of those close races where you had a lot of Republican incumbents who still had suburban voters where Democrats felt that they had opportunities did not fall their way. And Republicans did pick up people like Donna Shalala getting defeated down in Dade County is a bit of, not a shocker, but a surprise. And so having that control means that having a margin much closer means that Nancy Pelosi can no longer steamroll anyone. I don't question whether or not she's going to remain the leader, but I do think that there is going to be a clash within the Democratic Party as to what the causes of this were, and there's going to be a push by the progressives to move even more aggressively. And so that's going to be the great thing for us to look back in a couple of months and see where we are.
Excellent. So I'm not going to ask for a prediction, but I do have one follow-up question just to understand your comment relative to the Senate. What's the difference for those of us that aren't, clearly as knowledgeable, that if the Democrats do get a 51, control of the Senate, why that's not as good as 54, as you had mentioned, relative to some of those larger initiatives that could impact brokers?
Now let's take the public option alone. So you've got two moderate Republican or Democratic senators, Kirsten Sinema in Arizona and Joe Manchin in West Virginia, who have said we are not for a Medicare pegged public option. So it's very difficult to get there. Then you have to use arcane processes like reconciliation that was used to pass the ACA to move on, but you're not going to get to, neither one of those senators is supportive of eliminating the legislative filibuster. Meanwhile, the question of whether or not McConnell's in control by a vote or two or Schumer's in control by a vote or two, they look at liability reform in the context of whatever the next COVID package is going to be. I've heard commentary as to whether or not this election might mean that they could come together in the lame duck on something that they can meet in the middle on, with Biden involved in that in case he wins. I've heard commentary that no, this makes it virtually impossible. Not sure on that. But with respect to liability relief, if Mitch McConnell is the leader, that red line in the sand is absolutely going to be the case. And so he will win on that. And so that's the differential. It does matter ferociously whether or not McConnell or Schumer is in charge of the Senate. And I could give you different scenarios as to how that cuts in different ways for brokers.
No, that's perfect, because I think the short of what you just said is there are some people that still vote common sense, and it's not just party lines. And because of that, or common sense as it relates to them, not in my opinion, but as it relates to their perspective, it's not just a party issue and a party line, and having a larger majority is necessary to steamroll, even though if they voted purely party lines, they'd have the opportunity to push things through.
And it's a question, this is beyond you or me. Does this mean that the country is even more divided than ever before? Or does this mean that this forces action toward the center and a reckoning on both sides about the necessity for us to move away from the bitter partisan divide? Time will tell. I just know that we know a lot more today about the commercial insurance brokerage agenda come January than we knew 2 days ago.
Awesome. Joel, a shameless plug for both of us. We're hosting a conference next Tuesday that you're going to come speak at. It's virtual, MarshBerry's Impact Summit on Tuesday. What is it, November 10th? So I'm sure there'll be a link to it included with this email that goes out. But I'm sure you'll have even more insight, and I'm hopeful that by next Tuesday, we're going to know who our new president is, or who our president is, whether it's someone new or not. So appreciate your time. Really look forward to getting another more robust update from you in about a week from now. And good luck with what will be, I'm sure, a few more busy days for you. Thanks again for all your insight.
Thank you so much, from your lips to God's ears.
Talk to you soon, Joel. Thanks.